Hey guys, welcome back to Devin Talks Tabletop, the YouTube channel where the games are made up. What I say doesn't matter. And I didn't even do that intro in the first one because that's how long it's been. I forgot about how to do my own channel, which probably tells me I need to film more often for both my sake and your sake. Or maybe not your sake. Maybe the hiatus I've been on for the last 3 months, maybe you've been ecstatic. Maybe you have been doing good. So maybe let me know, please, if you're like, hey, dip back under the water. No need to surface again, sir. But I wanted to talk about Path of Destiny another time. So in the first video, the previous video that I did, I discussed kind of the gameplay and then also the mechanics, the world that revolves around the card play, both the drafting and then also the tableau building. But all of that particular to how the cards are designed, because the way that the cards are designed give you so much flexibility, and I really enjoy that, and that's why I wanted to kind of focus and dial in on that for that particular video. In this video, I'd like to talk about narrative exploration. So if you're unfamiliar with Go On Board, they previously did The Witcher Old World. I've got that over there. I'm eager to jump into it. I don't have any experience with it beyond a single play, so it's not something that I feel like I can, talk well about at this point. But I do think that I can see some parallels, some similarities between how they've built that game and how this one has been crafted. But the difference between this and the thing that I want to talk about in this video is how you can choose for the narrative to be explored, or how the narrative evolves on a game-by-game basis. Not just within each tale, not just from tale to tale, but in each tale, you can choose to navigate that world differently every single time. And even within each playthrough, you can decide to shift directions and move in an entirely opposite space. And I think that's really interesting. So in this story, which is the story of the Striga, again, as I said in the last video, if you have watched the Netflix series or if you have read The Last Wish, you're going to be familiar with a lot of the tales that are brought forth in this game. You've got the tale of the Striga, lesser evil between Renfri and Stregobor, and then you've got the edge of the world with the Scoia'tael and the outcast elves. But the thing that I like about this, if we just, for example, look at the Netflix series. So if you have the 3 seasons with Henry Cavill and all of the, stellar cast that accompany him in that adaptation of the world of The Witcher, it is a inaccessible experience in terms of audience manipulation or interaction. You can't adjust what's happening. It is a version, it is a portrayal of Geralt the Witcher that you can decide is the main one or a secondary one. However you want to choose to engage with that material, it is the version of The Witcher that you're watching. You can't really do anything to change it. That is what it is. And then in the books, it's the same thing. That is a version of The Witcher, and you have to accept that that's Geralt, that's Yennefer, that's Vesemir, that's Dandelion or Jaskier, and that's everybody else that's involved. That is who they are. That's how they're portrayed. That is that distillation. That's that version of them. In this game, though, and somewhat more similar to the video game, you have agency, you have choice. And that means that you're not watching a story unfold in front of you, you're actively involved in how it transpires. And I think that that is a fun element to engage with as a player in Path of Destiny. So you have the Striga, and mild spoilers, this is a monster or a creature that Geralt is tasked to deal with. Now, in the story of The Witcher and The Last Wish, Geralt deals with it in a particular fashion. In the Netflix series, Geralt deals with it in a particular fashion. You'd have to consume those 2 pieces of entertainment to decide or find out how that is. But in this, you can make Geralt and the story what you want by where you push it mechanically. Your mechanical choices influence the way the story heads. So you could have a violent confrontation. You can be the mediator between different sides of the court. You could be the the instigator of King Foltest's will. There's different directions you can go here. There's like 4 different ways that the story can end, but also because it's a little bit of choose your adventure. For example, if I take this card here, at the bottom it says like if you move in this direction, turn to page 6. You can turn on a dime in this game and you can explore one direction and then decide no, that's not how you want to progress, either because mechanically it doesn't suit the tableau that you're building, or maybe you are making your gameplay decisions based off of your narrative desires, which is entirely valid. It's however you want to engage with the game. But because you can change your mind, it means that you don't have such a linear path to the story. And so no matter how many times you play this game, you could theoretically cause a version of it to transpire. And not necessarily you would have a different ending. If there's 4 endings, then maybe you wouldn't progress past 4 endings because those are the limits. But the way that you reach that, the journey that you're on to that destination, can be different because of how you navigate the game. And I think that's really clever because it means that you have agency to decide the story for yourself. And it also means you have an invested reason to re-explore the game because it's not going to be a rote replay of the last experience. You can see a different unfolding of events and maybe a different order, a chronology of events based off of how you decide to play. I think that's really, really clever. I like that a lot. So that's in the Striga. Then you also have Stregobor and Renfri. And as I mentioned, this is the narrative of the lesser evil. And if you are unfamiliar with the term lesser evil, it's kind of what happens when you're in a lose-lose situation. No matter what you do, something or someone else will suffer. And so if you pick Stregobor, you're choosing to forsake Renfri. And if you choose Renfri, you choose to go against the wishes and the hopes and the warnings of Stregobor. There's no good answer. And when there's no good answer, it kind of presents an interesting question to the reader, the viewer, and in this instance, the player. When you're watching The Witcher happen, when you are reading The Witcher, again, you are a distanced party observing events and deciding for yourself. You give judgment or consideration as to the morality of what's being done. You're kind of a disinterested or impartial observer / judge. You get to view what you think is the right decision or the wrong decision. But when you're mired in the middle of it yourself, when you're engaging in a tale, and you have to decide, am I going to take Renfri's side? Am I going to take Stregobor's side? You no longer have the clean hands of someone that is outside of the moment. You have the very dirtied and bloodied hands of someone that has to make decisions. And it's one of those interesting things because it's harder to judge something when you're in the middle of it. There's a lot more leniency for the grays instead of the black and whites. It's a lot harder to find good and bad and a lot easier to just find reality. It's an interesting ploy. It's an interesting design element where players are not passive. They are active and they are choosing the destiny. They're choosing fate, which is a concept in the Witcher universe. This idea of where people's destinies are, where people's fates are directed, and how much can you fight against that kind of supernatural, outside of reality experience. How much can you combat that? And I think that is a really interesting question that's at play that they do a good job in this game of figuring out. And then you have the story of the Scoia'tael, the elves, and this is more of a exploration of who is normal and who is other. And that really is a painful thing to look into, where you think about the normal humans or the normal people that exist in the world, and then those that are outcast, those that are looked down upon because they are other. We don't identify with them, or maybe that was a slip of the tongue. Maybe we don't identify them at all, and it's a challenging thing to think about and to also grapple with. And I like that you don't have to worry about the story in this game at all. You don't have to care about it. You can just play this for a pure mechanical sense. But I do think that it is a fascinating way of engaging with source material that in other capacities, whether it's reading or whether it's watching, you are a passive observer. And in these, you do get to influence. You get to nudge fate in one direction or the other as you try to decide where the story will end up. And in doing so, you are an active participant in the world. You are someone who can fashion history and create it or write it in your own image, in your own likening, and I think that's really clever. I like it a lot. I think it is potentially a more immersive way of engaging with narrative rather than just experiencing it, kind of like when you're on a roller coaster ride and things are just passing you by and you are really a passenger in an experience that's happening. But this is a lot more active. It's a lot more active. It's a lot more open to interpretation based off of how you decide to push through it. And I like that. I think that's fun. I think that's clever. And so that is kind of the second main thing that I wanted to talk about with Path of Destiny, was the narrative, and how even though I think the card play is really rich and really interesting, and between each tale it can expand and grow in different directions, that the tales themselves are something to appreciate, that the tales really give you kind of a backdrop for you to enjoy the game, because it's not a flat image, it's not a dynamic, or it's not like a static experience or background. It is a ever-moving, ever-changing one based off of how you decide to engage in the world of The Witcher. I think that's cool, and I wanted to let you guys know. And again, this is Path of Destiny. It is an upcoming title on GameFound. If you would like to check it out, do so. Go On Board is a Polish designer that I've got my eye on because they make fun things. And I like fun things because, above all, it should be fun, right? And I find this to be the case. That was the most articulate I could be at this point, which is not very articulate. But if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll answer what I can, which is, as usual, not very much, because I don't have much to give, much to offer. But you know who does have much to offer? Go On Board. Hope you guys check it out. And if you're interested, if you think this is a game for you, let me know, because I'm curious what you guys think. I'm curious if our tastes line up. Hope you have a good one. I'll see you next time. Bye.